Hello, I'm Kiana Slimak.
And I'm Helen Lehrer.
We are looking at the piece Venus by Nam June Paik, and it is part of a series called Planets he made in 1990.
The piece is 24 monitors arranged around within a circular shape with Korean text referring to a planet, moons, and satellites around it.
Some of the images on the monitor rotate in a clockwise direction, and on some screens there is a spherical image that, when all rotating together, makes the piece appear as though it is rotating as a planet would.
His use of video recordings makes him the father of video art, and in the context that he was living in, it makes sense because this is when mass media and music videos and advertisements were becoming digitalized.
Yes, and of course, at the time he was commenting on an American culture that was obsessed with television, moving images, and bright and shiny objects. To understand his view and perspective of New York City in the 90s, you need just a brief on his background, which Paik was trained as a classical pianist, but while studying music history in Germany, met Karlheinz Stockhausen and John Cage. These two composers encouraged him to work on electronic arts.
Yeah, and he's actually originally from Korea, but his family fled the country in the 1950s during the Korean War. They moved to Hong Kong, and then after that moved to Japan. And then in 1964, after he spent his time in Germany where he met Cage, he moved to New York City and joined the Fluxus art movement.
Yes, and the Fluxus movement was a post-war movement that became quite internationally popular.
While he was involved with the Fluxus movement, he became friends with Andy Warhol and other Dada artists, and this is where he was introduced to the Dada movement and inspired him to bring everyday experiences and objects into his art, such as television.
Yes, and this is when he brought television and videos into his art. As a classical pianist, he was drawn to video in the context of his music. He became intrigued with television manipulation for the sake of his music.
Well, John Cage influenced him to join this experimental music culture, and he would perform avant-garde concert performances where people would come to the show thinking they were coming to see a prestigious piano player, when then Nam June Paik would run out into the crowd and pour shampoo on John Cage's head.
And after a while, he became more intrigued with the visuals of television and less of the performance art and the actual sounds.
And while discovering the limitless possibility of digital art, he created some of the first music videos. His fast-changing music videos became popular in the 80s and revolutionized pop culture. This piece, Venus, is a great example of how these videos capture your full attention and imagination. Paik was most likely inspired by the high-speed advertisement of New York City and the fast-paced culture during this time.
Nam June Paik realized the impact that technology would have on the up-and-coming 21st century, and was correct when he said, "The future is now."
And that's a wrap!